So you know that inside every single one of your cells is this bustling, chaotic city, right? It's just unbelievably complex. But what if I told you we can make sense of it all using economics? Yeah, you heard me right. Today, we're going to open up the books on the cellular economy.
I know, it sounds a little out there. Cells running on money? But just think about it for a second. Imagine every single thing your body does. I mean, everything, from thinking a thought to just lifting a finger. Imagine it costs something, a tiny transaction. Well, in this microscopic economy, there actually is a universal currency that pays for it all.
And that currency is called adenosine triphosphate, or ATP for short. You can literally think of this molecule as the cell's version of cash. It's not just sitting there storing energy. No, it's the thing that gets spent to make things happen. It's the dollar, the euro, the yen of the biological world. And get this, all life on Earth, and I mean all of it, from a tiny bacterium to a giant blue whale, runs on ATP. It's truly universal.
Okay, so what does this ATP actually buy? Well, pretty much everything. The energy from ATP is what lets your muscles contract. It's what powers the replication of your DNA when your cells divide. It's what fuels the signals zipping through your nerves. It literally builds the proteins that make you, well, you. So you can see, without a constant flow of ATP, the whole cellular economy doesn't just slow down, it goes completely bankrupt. Game over.
Okay, so managing the cellular economy. Here's where it gets really tricky. A single cell has, trillions of parts all moving at once. Trillions. So the big question is, how in the world do you even begin to map out something that mind-bogglingly complex?
How do you create a business plan for a system like that? Well, to try and get a handle on all this complexity, scientists build models, and you can absolutely think of them as a business plan for the cell. But this leads to a huge problem, a fundamental trade-off that researchers are always up against.
And this right here is what we call the modeler's dilemma. It's a real catch-22. See, on one side, you've got these small, simple models. They're great, they're easy to solve, but they're so simple they miss all the juicy, crucial details that actually make biology, work. Then on the other side, you can go big, build these massive, super detailed models. Awesome, right? Except they get so ridiculously complex that you can't even solve them. So the real challenge, the holy grail, is to find that perfect middle ground, a model with enough detail to be useful, but simple enough to actually solve.
All right, so let's talk about the blueprint for a living cell. Because luckily, scientists have figured out a way to hit that sweet spot. It's a type of model called a resource allocation model, and it's basically the perfect economic blueprint for how a cell works.
So what this model does, as you can see here, is map out the cell's entire supply chain. It's brilliant. Over on the left, you've got the raw materials coming in. That's metabolism. Then, just like a savvy business, the cell doesn't just use those resources randomly. It invests them into building its machinery, the proteins and enzymes that do all the heavy lifting.
And this whole operation, this whole cellular economy, it has to play by three fundamental rules. You can think of them as the economic laws of the cell. First up, you got to balance the books. Simple as that. What comes in has to equal what goes out or gets used up. No cheating. Second, you have to obey efficiency limits. Every little machine, every enzyme has a speed limit. You can't push it to go faster than it's physically built to go. And third, you have to respect space constraints. A cell is a super crowded place. You can't just keep cramming more and more proteins into a space that's already packed.
And listen, these aren't just some abstract concepts. No. These rules are hard, physical limits on every single part of the cell's factory floor. They put a cap on how fast new materials can be imported, they limit the production speed of every single enzyme, and they even dictate the logistics of moving stuff around inside the cell. The whole system is basically run by these unavoidable economic realities.
Okay, so now we get to supply, demand, and control. Because once you have this economic blueprint, the questions you can ask get way more interesting. You can move beyond just mapping the factory and start asking, who's actually in charge here? With a blueprint like this, scientists can finally ask, who is in charge here? What's really controlling the flow of all these resources? And to figure that out, they turn to one of the most basic ideas in all of economics, supply and demand.
Okay, I know this graph might look a little complicated at first, but the idea is actually super simple. That supply curve, that's just showing how fast a certain molecule is being produced. And the demand curve, that's how fast it's getting used up. The magic happens right where they cross. That intersection, that's the economic sweet spot for the cell. It's the point where production and consumption are perfectly balanced. The system is stable.
And by finding this sweet spot for every key molecule, scientists can start to pinpoint the real control knobs of the entire network.
So let's get to the big question. Why does any of this cellular economy stuff matter? Well, this is way more than just a cool thought experiment. Understanding the cell this way has huge, real-world implications for everything from medicine to technology.
I mean, this is the real payoff. When we think like cellular economists, we can start to pinpoint the exact supply chain breakdowns that happen in diseases like muscular dystrophy, where ATP production goes wrong. We can predict how cells will adapt when they're starved of a key resource, like iron. We can even get into designing better microbes for biotechnology, turning them into tiny, super-efficient factories. It's basically a roadmap for both fixing and building biological systems.
And there's this great quote from the research that really captures the whole spirit of this. It says, "After all, modeling is an art, and there's no one cookbook that represents the ground truth. We should be free to explore the secrets of biology." I love that. It's a fantastic reminder that science isn't always about finding a single, correct answer. A lot of the time, it's an art. It's about building new ways of seeing things, new frameworks, like this whole cellular economy idea, that let us get one step closer to understanding the incredible secrets of life.
Which really leaves us with a pretty mind-blowing final thought, doesn't it? If the cell is an economy, then it's one that's been innovating and optimizing for billions of years. It's the oldest and most successful economy in the universe. So if we can finally learn to speak its language, the language of resources, of supply and demand, just imagine, what incredible breakthroughs could we invent next, working with it?